Okay, welcome to the continuation of the class. Like we earlier discussed, given the question that given marks or score of 20 students in mathematics test, present the information in a frequency distribution table. The same set of scores given to us are presented here, which are 20 in number. We have two rows containing a list of 10 scores for the first and the second rows. That makes a total of 20. The first thing to do here is to what? The first step is to determine the what? Determine the class width. More often than not, in the test that will be given to you or any question being given to you, we will have to what? Suggest a class width. But in this case, we want to what? Suggest a class width of what? Of 5. We want to use a class width of 5. So I haven't gotten the information using a class width of what? Of 5. Then the first thing to do is to what? To get the minimum, the lowest, and the highest, the lowest score and the highest score. So looking at what is here, the lowest score, which you rightly observe here, is what? Is 3, while the highest score is 29. You agree with me here that from here, the range will be equals to what? Will be equals to 29 minus 3. That will give us what? That will give us 27. All right, so since we know the range, and we also know the class width, these are two things that is very important that we need to determine here. This will lead us to the number of rows that we must create here. This will lead us to the number of rows we must create here. It's a very important part of this particular class. It will lead us to the number of rows we have to create. And how do we determine that? So to know the number of rows, to know the number of rows that we needed, it will be equal to the number of rows will be determined by saying what? The range plus 1 divided by what? The number of what? The class width. So this here by implication will be 27 plus 1 divided by 5. So this will give us 28 divided by 5. And computing this will be 5 will go here 5 times, that will be 25. We are left with 3, 36. So we have 5.6. In this particular case, if you have any decimal, we are expected to round up, don't round down. So that we don't leave any number, it must be exhaustive. And for us to make it exhaustive, you must always round up and not round down. So by implication, we approximate this to be 6. This tells us that we will need 6 rows while computing. This tells us that we need 6 rows while computing, because the question itself can emanate from here that given this set of data and given the class width of this, how many rows can be created from this particular data set? We should be able to determine that. So what is the next thing to do? Since we know the lowest score to be 3 and we know the highest score to be 29, so we have to create the class interval. We have to create the class interval. So for class interval, which is what we have here, for the class interval, so starting with 3, we start with 3. Then since we know that the width is 5, then we have to what? Starting with 3, then we know we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it ends with what? It will end with 7. The first class interval will be 3 to 7. 3 to 7. While next to that, it will start with what? The next one will start with 8 and will end with what? With 12. The next one will start with 13 and it will end with 17. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Good. The next one will start with 18 and it will end with 22. The next will start with 23 and it will end with 27. Of course, you agree with me at this point that we have not exhausted or we still have the highest being 29. So we still have to create one more class, which will be the sixth one. This we've created 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have also created 5. All right, so the last one will now be from 28. This does not mean that we're going to stop at 29. Rather, we will create, we have to be consistent. So the next will be what? 32. Okay, the next will then be 32. The next will be 32. All right, so from here, after the class interval, the next thing we have to think of is how do we then summarize this data? How do we summarize the data to ensure that we the raw scores given here are adequately represented. So the next column we expect to create here is what we call what we call tally. The next column to create now is tally. So we have to look at keep an eye on this particular raw data, and how do we then present them in the frequency table.